So let me show you what's going on with it, and we'll see if we can't improve on the performance of it. Let's start by taking the air filter out, remove the little air box. Let's get the carburetor completely out of there. Probably have to start by just cleaning up the carburetor real good and just looking for issues. I can see already that it's dripping fuel, so that's not a good sign right off the bat. So we got two 10mm bolts. Show you where they're at. Take these two off, and this air box will come out, and then we'll see what we got behind there. Another good idea would be to pinch off the fuel line. Next thing we want to do is drain any fuel that's in the little carburetor. So under here there's a little reservoir, and you can see it's already dripping. So I'm going to go ahead and unscrew that, let all that fuel drain out of there. So guys, the little bolt on the bottom of the little reservoir is also 10mm. So we gotta push this little rubber thing out to get this little thing loose. We gotta push this one also out. But anyway, you take out these little rubber things, and then this little shaft. We'll have to wiggle the carburetor out of it, and then I believe there is a fuel line down here. So right here we got a fuel line. So just get some pliers, open that up. Pull that hose off, and then we should be able to get this little part out of there. I'm just going to take this whole plate off. Just carefully work this little metal bracket off of here. And then there's also a spring. This is what we got. So save this, bend this little end back a little bit. There it goes. Set this over here to the side. Work this part off. We're just going to need a pair of pliers. So here's the little carburetor. And let's check the inside, see what it looks like. What I think the problem is, what I think the issue is here, guys, is that it doesn't have a gasket here. There's supposed to be a gasket right in that groove, and there's no gasket. So that's the reason that this thing is leaking fuel all over the place. So in here, there's supposed to be either a little rubber gasket or an O-ring or something. Anyhow, let me go ahead and put this in the vapor blast cabinet. We'll clean it up real good, and then we'll make up some gaskets for it. Okay, this is how it turned out. So you can see we gave it a nice little refresher. Looks a lot better than it did. And one thing that's very important whenever you're using any kind of a blast media is you want to blow out all of these little passages in here. So you want to get your compressed air, and you want to make sure that we blow out all of these little orifices. So you just put it in here. Inside of here, these little holes here, just blow them out. There's another one. Make sure you blow this part out here too. Another thing very important that we need to do is lubricate all of these moving parts. Since we did introduce a bunch of water, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put a little bit of some lubricant in there. Lubricate this little deal here. So I'm going to put some lubricant down in this hole. See if we can turn on the lights so you guys can see a little better. So I'm going to put a little lubricant down in this hole here. Lubricate the top part, right where this little thing pivots. Lubricate in here. Lubricate this shaft. Also lubricate up at the top, the shaft where it enters this little carburetor, and then at the bottom as well. What we're going to use to lubricate is just a little WD-40. That's it. That should do it. And just work these a little bit. Make sure they move real nice. Alright, that looks good. Clean off any extra oil that might have sprayed out there. Alright, next up we're going to address the gaskets. So let me see if we can recover any of the gaskets that were on here. And if we need to make some new ones, we'll make some new ones. These are the gaskets that we're going to need to find. And I can tell that this one definitely is not right. This one still looks good, and it does contain some metal. If you look real carefully along the edges, you can see some metal there. So this one will be reused. This one will need to be replaced, and I'm going to have to check on this one to see if this one looks the way the original one does. I can tell you just by looking at these two that they're not the original ones. Let's see if we can do some search on the internet for the same model engine, and hopefully someone will provide a picture that we can use as a reference. I opened up a Google browser and just typed in GCV190 Carburetor and came across this picture. It's the same exact model and carburetor as the one we're using. These are the two gaskets that we're going to need to reproduce. They're going to look just like the ones in this picture when we're through. The next thing we want to do is we need to recreate the gaskets if we don't have a accurate original one. The best way to do this is to photograph the part that you need to create a gasket for. In this case, this side of the carburetor along with the other side of the carburetor. So I'm going to take a picture of this side, then I'm going to turn it over, take a picture of the other side, then we'll head over to the computer and try to recreate those gaskets. Next up, we're going to open up GIMP. Maximize it, and then we're going to open the images that we downloaded. So these are the ones that we took with our camera. Now once we're in here, what we're going to do is we're going to draw a circle, and we want to make sure the circle is the same size. Then we're going to position it properly. Once we got it where we need it, then we're going to press delete. It's going to delete what's within the circle. We're going to move the circle over to the next bolt hole, not changing the size because the bolts are going to be the same. Go ahead and delete. Then we're going to take that circle, move it over to the carburetor side, enlarge it, position it, delete. Then we're going to go over to this little breather valve, same thing, position it, delete, make a little square, position it, delete. And now we're going to create a border around this whole entire carburetor. So we're going to go around the side that's going to get the gasket. This takes a few minutes. I have it sped up just to make it faster. Once we got it selected, we're going to invert our selection and delete. That gets rid of our background. We're going to select the item, copy, paste as a new picture. Zoom in. Now we're going to go to the level adjustment, and we're going to make it all dark. So the idea here is to get rid of the color variances, the shadows and stuff. Select all of your white points, invert your selection, and then pick the paint tool and paint everything black. That way our gasket is nice and even. We're going to do the same thing with the other one. So we're going to export this one. We're going to call it gasket 1. Save it. Next up, same thing. So create a circle, make sure the size is the same, position it, delete, move it over to the next bolt hole, position it, delete. Same thing, bring it over to this gap that we need to make here near the carburetor. Then do the same thing for the carburetor, enlarge it, position it just right, delete. And then we got this last little breather hole over here. Alright, done. Now we're going to follow the same process as before. We're going to go around and using the lasso tool, create a outline of the gasket we're going to create. Once it's all selected, select, invert, delete, and then we're going to go back over to create a box around it, copy, then paste as a new image, change the levels back to dark. Select all the white again, invert your selection, pick the paintbrush, paint everything black. I'm going to export this one, gasket 2, and then head over to Cricut Design Space. These Cricut machines are fantastic. Okay, we're going to browse for our picture. There's gasket 1. We're going to pick simple. Continue. Then we're going to change the tolerance on our magic wand tool to 70. That way we get a nice tight edge all the way around everything. Click on everything that's white. Continue. We're going to cut image. Continue. And then we're going to do the same thing with the other picture. So we're going to open gasket number 2. and go through the same process. Again, simple. Continue. Change our tolerances back to 70. And then select everything that's white. Continue. We're going to pick cut image, upload, and now we got our images. I've already created the project, but I'm going to show you guys how to load them in here. So you're going to go down to the bottom where it says upload, and you're going to select the gaskets. These are the ones that we just made. Insert images, and then what we're going to need to do next is to resize these. So you're going to need to measure the width of the carburetor, and then we're going to adjust the size of these to match that width. You don't want to change, you don't want to like unlock the aspect ratio or anything, just make it the same width, and then everything should line up. So these I already did, and this bottom one was a mistake. I'm going to get rid of it. And then I created already the little circles to act as the fuel bowl gaskets. I'm going to show you how I made those. All you got to do is create a circle. So we're going to go to our shapes. Down at the bottom, pick circle. Bring our circle over, and we measured the bowl. We know it's 2 inches, so we're going to go ahead and change this to 2 inches. Then we're going to change the color to some other color, maybe brown. All right, now we're going to create a second circle. This one has to be smaller than the 2-inch circle, so we'll make this one, I don't know, 1.825. I can't remember exactly the dimension because we already made it, but this is just an example to show you how to do it. And then we're going to select them both. We're going to align them. Select center, and it's going to put one right over the other. Next, we're going to highlight and pick them both. Head down to the bottom where it says slice. And then if you notice on the top right, now we got several images. We're going to get rid of the black one. So just pick it, delete, and get rid of the brown one, delete. And what we're left with is the ring. So what you would do at this point, if you need two, you would just copy and then paste a second ring. I already got them made, so I'm just going to get rid of this one. And then next up would be just to click on Make It. Now once it loads up, I've already made it, but the material that I chose for this is cereal box. It's going to use a deep point blade. Once you load that blade up in the machine, put your cardboard on the mat. All right, it's ready to go. Let's just let it do its thing. So here we got our two gaskets, perfectly cut out. Let me go ahead and unload them from the sheet. Thankfully, there was a few websites that had some pictures of the gaskets, and using those pictures as a guide, we were able to recreate the original gasket. And as you can see, this is the gasket that was on the unit, and it wasn't working properly, and this is what the gasket is supposed to look like. So again, same thing here. This is what was on the unit. This is what the gasket is supposed to look like. And then these two, I'm not sure if this part's going to work. I went ahead and had these also cut out on the machine, but I'm not sure if they're going to work. The original gasket was a piece of rubber, but we're going to go ahead and try to double stack these rings on here and see if we can't at least get it working. So here we are with the carburetor, and I want to show you guys how good these homemade gaskets came out. So this is what it's supposed to look like, all right? And then on the other side, there's the gasket for the other side. So a lot better than what was on there. Let's go ahead and start reassembling this and see if we can't get this thing to work. Oh, and I want to show you how these gaskets on the bottom came out too. These are pretty cool. So we have here two rings cut out, and what I'm hoping is that they'll provide a good enough seal to be able to reassemble the little fuel bowl at the bottom. All right, what I'm going to use is a little dab of some RTV sealant. I'm just going to put a little dab here on each end here, and that should hold our gasket on. So just give it a little dot here, a little dot over here. Now I'm gonna put this on here, and then I'm gonna let it set up. That way it's glued on there and I don't have to worry about it moving around. Just press it down there. And I'm going to do the same thing with the other side. Just give it a little dot over here on the edge. A little dot over here on the edge. That should do it. Make sure it's straight. And I'm just going to set this aside and leave it alone until this sets up. And then it should be much easier to reinstall. We're going to start the reassembly with connecting this little control bar here and the spring. So go ahead and put this little guy back in place. Put the little spring in the little hole. And then now we're going to connect the carburetor. It's been a little while. Our gaskets are now held in place. We're going to start by connecting that first bar that I just showed you to this little hole. And then the spring goes on the one on top. So let's do that. Next thing you want to do is connect up this bar here. Get your 2 bolts on the air box. So you want to have the 2 bolts on the air box. And we're going to sandwich it all together right now. Once you get the bolt started, make sure that we hook up there's a little hose that's behind here. Let me show you where that's at. We got to make sure that we reconnect this. Let's see if you can see it here, guys. This hose right here. So there's a hose right here. We got to reconnect that to the air box, which is right there. And then on the bottom, we're going to need to reconnect this fuel hose to, let's see if I can get under there so you guys can see. So we're going to connect that fuel hose to this little nipple right here. Hopefully you guys can see that. Put this bolt over here for the bracket. We're just going to tighten everything back up. And you don't want to crank down on this too much, but just snug it up. Make sure that you put your little clip back on that pinches the fuel line to that little nipple that comes out of the carburetor. Last thing is to put on the air filter. Alright guys, let's give it a try.